Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something that's been making some waves online. It's about an alleged and pretty surprising relocation trend involving South Africa. So our plan is to unpack the story told in a YouTube video transcript. It's from the channel Big Shy 411. We'll explore the specific claims, the reasons given, and, the implications the presenter highlights. Really, it's about understanding how this particular narrative is constructed, using the elements this source puts forward.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is how this source, Big Shy 401, kind of weaves things together. You've got historical links, current social conditions, even religious ideas all pulled into one picture. So yeah, we'll stick strictly to what's in the source material. We're looking at the narrative itself, not trying to fact check it here, just understanding that perspective.
Okay, let's get right into it. Big Shy 411 starts with what it calls an alarming observation. The claim is that Israeli citizens, and the source often says Israelite, are, quote, pouring into South Africa in large amount of numbers. And it's not just tourism. The video says they are actively traveling and relocating, like moving there.
Right. The scale is emphasized immediately, and that word choice, pouring in, it definitely sets a tone. It suggests something overwhelming, uncontrolled, perhaps.
An influx.
And it's not just general relocation. Big Shy 411 points to specific geography, allegedly buying up properties in strategic locations across the country. But there's a real laser focus on one place.
Cape Town.
Cape Town. The source says, quite bluntly, Cape Town and the port city of Cape Town is pretty much sold to the Israel citizens. I mean, that's a huge statement. Not just buying some property, but pretty much sold.
Wow, okay. That's a profoundly strong claim from the source. Pretty much sold. It paints a picture of almost total transfer, which you can imagine would tap into concerns about sovereignty or local control. And the source really doubles down on the scale, right? It mentions wealth brackets.
It does, yeah. It talks about the level of how many billionaires are traveling from Israel to South Africa, the amount of millionaires, the amount of Israel is really alarming. Again, using that word alarming. And then there's this interesting move where it says, you should ask a South African person or ask a South African that live near Cape Town, adding, you cannot make this up.
So trying to ground the claim in supposed first-hand observation, like go check for yourself.
Exactly. Makes it feel more tangible, more undeniable for the listener, as if it's common knowledge on the ground.
So according to Big Shy 411, what's the immediate effect of this alleged influx? There's that line about protection.
Yes, the presenter states that these visitors are more protected than the owners of the house, which is quite a loaded statement. It suggests a real disparity in rights or security. Maybe newcomers having more legal standing or police protection than locals. That seems to be the implication.
So how does the source say people in South Africa are reacting? Is there awareness? Concern?
Well, the source acknowledges some reaction. It says a few South African had raised alarm at what is going on around them. So it concedes that some people are noticing and worried. But then crucially, it adds that most of the South African are still blindfolded.
Blindfolded. So the source is positioning itself as the one revealing the truth.
Pretty much. Like it's lifting the veil for an audience that's largely unaware according to its own narrative. It suggests only a few are really seeing the picture.
Okay, that makes sense as a narrative strategy. Now, the big question, which the source actually brings up itself, why South Africa? It literally asks, why not Nigeria? Why not Ghana? Why not Sri Lanka? And says, if that question had ever popped in your mind, then you're right, that is a very good question to ask.
Yeah, it anticipates that objection or question from the audience. And then it provides answers. And this is where, as the source says, it gets really interesting. It starts connecting dots, primarily historical and community links.
Okay, what's the main connection?
The first big reason given is that South Africa has a significant and a well-organized Jewish community, described as one of the biggest in the whole of African continent.
And it breaks down that community.
It does. It mentions Ashkenazi and the Sephardic Jewish. Now, that's likely meant to be Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, describing them as descendants of European immigrants from, decades or centuries ago, so a long-standing presence. And it also mentions a smaller group, the African Hebrew Israelite, who it says migrated from the U.S. and aren't affiliated with, quote, mainstream media Judaism.
So a diverse but established Jewish presence is the point here.
Exactly. Rooted. And the source links this history directly to the present claims. It says, South Africa Jewish had made significant contribution to Israelite society and culture. This builds what the source calls a strong connection between Israel and South Africa historically in a Jewish setting.
Okay, so there's this existing community, historical ties. How does the source explicitly connect that to the alleged current influx? Is it just familiar ground?
It's presented as more than just familiarity. The source explicitly says this established, organized community makes South Africa a primary target and the best place for them to relocate. Why? For ease of settlement, for flourishing, for cultural connection. It's framed as the logical, almost pre-selected destination because of these deep roots.
Right, so it's not random, according to Big Shy 411. There's a foundational reason. But then the source goes further, doesn't it, into more speculative territory.
It does. It puts forward this idea, what if things go wrong for Israel? And says, if it all goes wrong for Israel, if everything goes wrong for Israel, then South Africa emerges as the next possible location for the Israelite, a place where they can stay, flourish, and live happily as much as they want, like a plan B.
A potential safe haven, essentially.
Yeah, and the source reinforces this by adding that in South Africa, they are protected, very, very protected. This idea of guaranteed safety is presented as a key draw, suggesting perhaps some kind of elite status or security arrangement. It hints at forethought, planning.
Very, very protected. But then the source kind of pivots, right? It questions if South Africa is actually safe for this.
Exactly. It poses the counter question. Is it safe for South Africa right now, given what South Africa is already going through? And the presenter's answer is a flat no.
So why no? What are the vulnerabilities mentioned?
Well, this is where the source details South Africa's internal problems. It says the country is overwhelmed with poverty, unemployment, crime, social injustice, a whole list. And the argument made is that these issues make people lose focus on the bigger picture. Because, as the source puts it, everybody will be thinking about is their own belly, their stomach, how they going to feed, how they going to look after their family.
So the idea is that internal crises distract the population from noticing or resisting this alleged influx.
That seems to be the implication. A nation struggling with basic survival, according to this view, is less likely to police its borders or notice strategic demographic shifts. And the source is very clear about where it places the blame for this situation.
The government.
Directly. It claims the South African government had failed the ordinary people of South Africa.
Yeah.
It talks about selfish, corrupt politicians who will sell everything and anything just to fill their bank account, saying they don't care about tomorrow and they will sell anything and everything to get some little billion or million in their bank account.
Wow. So the source directly links alleged government corruption to the country's vulnerability, making it susceptible.
Absolutely. It paints a picture where internal weakness and corruption basically open the door for this kind of external strategic move, as the source portrays it.
Okay, so we have the claims, the historical backdrop, the internal situation.
Yeah.
What about the nature of the movement itself? How does Big Shy 401 to describe it?
It's described very specifically. The source states, it wasn't a mistake, it is an organized movement.
Organized, not just spontaneous.
Right. That word organized changes the whole dynamic. It suggests strategy, coordination, intent behind it all. Not just individuals deciding to move, but something planned.
That's a crucial framing. And how does the source wrap up its argument? It brings in another element, doesn't it?
Yes, it connects the historical claims and this idea of an organized movement to, well, a sense of destiny. The presenter says, from what I can see from where I'm sat right now, it doesn't look good because you know what it is when the Israelite comes in, that land is promised to them by God, whether you like it or not.
So bringing in a religious dimension, the idea of a promised land.
Precisely. It layers this almost fatalistic, religiously charged interpretation onto the whole narrative, suggesting the alleged influx isn't just strategic, but perhaps divinely ordained, inevitable.
And then the presenter asked for comments, right? Acknowledging they aren't actually there.
Yeah, ends by calling it a very sensitive topic and invites audience input, saying they rely on available info and feedback. Which is an interesting way to conclude, sort of asking the audience to co-sign or add to a narrative already laid out very strongly.
Okay, let's just quickly pull the main threads together from this deep dive into the Big Shy 401 transcript. We've heard claims of an alarming influx of Israeli citizens, called Israelite, into South Africa, especially Cape Town, driven, according to the source, by existing Jewish community ties, historical contributions, and South Africa being seen as a protected potential refuge.
Right. And then layered on top of that is the claim that South Africa's own internal issues, poverty, unemployment, alleged government corruption make it vulnerable, framed not as random migration, but an organized movement.
Yeah.
And finally, imbued with this sense of destiny linked to religious ideas of a promised land.
It really shows how a source can blend history, socioeconomics, and religion to build a specific, quite potent narrative online. The real takeaway isn't necessarily what happened based on this source, but how the story is being constructed.
Absolutely. Which leads to, I think, an important question for us, for you listening. When you look at all these elements, the source uses the history, the vulnerability, the promised land idea. What does that tell us? What does it reveal about the different ways major events like migration or land acquisition get interpreted and presented, especially online? And how might these powerful narratives shape what people believe, regardless of the underlying facts?
A really fascinating question to mull over. How are these stories built and what impact do they have? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll keep exploring, keep questioning the information you come across.
See you next time.